Thank you very much for joining us for this first online lecture on artificial intelligence. My name is Martial Guérin, and I work at the Scientific and Academic Cooperation Office of the French Embassy in Israel. Cars, hospital, social, medias, education, artificial intelligence is everywhere, and it has been growing exponentially over the past few years. The development of AI led to beneficial progress, but it also created fears. Some people imagine a world dominated by robots and AI, where human beings would be subjected to machines. Without going that far, it's clear that some new application of AI could have a real impact on our daily lives. But shall you let AI change your life? To help you to find an answer to this question, we decided to organize a series of panel discussions that will explore the current issues and challenges raised by the development of artificial intelligence. Our aim is to cover all possible approaches to AI in perspective in different fields: health, defense, automotive, gender, and art. Artificial intelligence is everywhere, but it is hard for us to actually understand it and understand its functioning. Artificial neural network, deep learning, machine learning, when you get into it, it quickly becomes very technical. That's why we decided, even before discussing ethical issues, to organize 2 online lectures that aim to define AI and help you to better understand what it is and how it works. And for the first conference tonight, it's my great honor to welcome Benoit Le Blanc. Benoit, you're a professor at Bordeaux ENP, specialized in artificial intelligence and applied cognitive sciences. Your research activities deal with knowledge management, decision systems, and human trust in artificial intelligence systems. Since 2019, you're at the head of the National School of Engineering in Cognitic. And before that, you were for 5 years in charge of artificial intelligence subjects at the French Ministry of Research. You will tonight offer a glossary introducing the terms of computer sciences that are necessary for understanding artificial intelligence. Oh, for your information, Benoit will speak for about 45, 50 minutes, and he will then answer your question. So if you do have a question, please use the Q&A button and write your question down. And I'll be here to moderate the session of questions and answers. Dear Benoit, thanks again for being with us tonight. The floor is now yours. Let's explore the fascinating world of artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Martial. Thank you very well. The floor, perhaps the screen is better for me. Okay, so as you can see, I will speak to you in English. So because of that, you can notice that artificial intelligence is not so cute today because there is no translation, no direct translation between French language and English. So I propose to you a glossary of artificial intelligence from 26 entries, 26 letters, 26 concepts around artificial intelligence. So I will be your tour operator for this trip for less than 1 hour about artificial intelligence. So first, let me show you the 26 entries. The first one, of course, is artificial intelligence. The main idea to understand tonight is that it's today an interdisciplinary domain. So this artificial intelligence is not only the topic for computer scientists. We will talk about biases because biases are everywhere for cognitive people, for cognitive orientation for people or for data, of course. The computation, because in artificial intelligence, there is nothing without computers. One other is decision making, how to proceed to make a decision. The ethic is a very important part of artificial intelligence. It's a proper approach for artificial intelligence. One other concept from computer science is the files, because there is a physical storage for all kinds of information. The graphs are an excellent way to model the world, to have a representation of the world inside the machine. Heuristics is how to process when you don't know how to do something with a computer. Of course, artificial intelligence includes intelligence, which is a natural skill. The problem of jobs will appear soon, I think. Knowledge is a part of artificial intelligence, big part one. Learning, as you said, Marcel, is of course the main part for training for neural networks, so to use neural networks. The mind is a concept for human, of course. neurons are part of neural networks, and so on. Ontology, the semantic networks. We will talk about programs, how does a formal neural network work for today. And we speak some words, just some words about quantum computing. The recognition is a main ability for AI programs today. Semantics, the problem of artificial intelligence is semantic only for humans, or is it possible to put semantic in another way for computers? Alan Turing is a man who starts the story of artificial intelligence. The problem of user is a user experience problem. The virtuality, of course, is a different kind of world for us, different from reality. Watson is a question of conversation from IBM. XAI is explainable artificial intelligence. Why for the Y generation are these young people so different than us? And the last one is zeta or zero. It's a question of the size of data. So you can see that in 26 words, in 26 concepts, I will introduce to you the main parts of things to know about artificial intelligence. Of course, the first one is artificial intelligence itself. So I take some example, of course, some example which are from French culture, because I think that because it's from Institut français, I think it's better to have a cultural anchorage. And so I propose to you the new definition of artificial intelligence in France. This is an official one definition. This is a definition from the Journal officiel de la République française, in which we have all the vocabulary used by lawyers, by deputies, by government, and all of the words used by the official part of the country. They need to have a definition for that to be sure what the technical words engage in laws and for the government. So artificial intelligence was mainly a part of computer scientists. The first definition, as you can see, was around the 90s. In this period, artificial intelligence was only computer science discipline, computer science domain. And since only 2 years, a new definition appears just to introduce the word of interdisciplinary domain. So today, artificial intelligence for lawyers are interdisciplinary domain, but directly linked to the economic world and specifically to the human activities. So we want with artificial intelligence to improve human activities. Of course, the intelligence is a second word. Intelligence, indeed, is easy to observe. If you want to observe human intelligence, you can observe the ability to solve complex problems from people. But indeed, the influence of economy is very important to understand what kind of complex problem could be solved. The influence of economy, in my point of view, has several parts in the past. So in the first one, remember in the 80s, it was time for computers. So in the 80s, we had some switch of a main concept for industry, for enterprise, from paper to data files. So it was the beginning of the introduction of data files in the usual activity, in the work activity. And all organization of works was made around the information systems of enterprises. It was the main activity was around screen. So there were a screen for each tool in enterprise. Today, it's a time of big data. And because of that, we switch of concept. The time of big data, it means that there is an organization of works around the recommendation of artificial intelligence program. So artificial intelligence program could provide for us the best way to make some activity, to make some behavior in work. It's quite very, very cute and very, very dangerous, perhaps. But if you can observe the industrial activity, you can see that there is today a tutorial for each activity. And indeed, it's possible to find a conception of how to do something and to express how to do something, and it could be recommended by artificial intelligence algorithm. So indeed, intelligence is difficult word to define, but For mechanical intelligence, we can say that today it's the ability to recognize a shape in a continuous flow of data. And this shape could be used for decision and automated decision, like diagnosis, prediction, and so on. So the world of artificial intelligence is today an interdisciplinary domain, in which the ability to recognize a shape in a flow of data will be the main part to build an automated decision. So, of course, we talk about the mind, and be sure to make the difference between the mind and the brain. The mind is related to human cognition, so the behavior, different abilities, and so on. But the brain is only related to neural system. Neuronal system is composed of biological cells. So artificial intelligence is not the new brain, it will be perhaps the new mind. We can observe that it's possible to have a brain without mind. Of course, it's a dead brain for that. But the question is it possible to have a mind without brain? So is it possible to save a mind outside the brain, or is it possible to make a mind without a brain? And this opens the door to the mind hacking and to the capacity to enhance the brain. So perhaps in the future, artificial intelligence will open doors to hack the mind indeed. So coming back to computer science consideration. In computer science, we used to make a representation of the world with graphs. Graphs are composed with possible states of the world, so the nodes, and rules for evolution of this world. So the world has a link. Just an example, I show you a very famous problem in France, which is the problem of a wolf, a goat, and a cabbage. So a man wants to translate from one side to the other side of the river, the three parts of them, but of course it's impossible to have the goat and the wolf on the same place because the wolf will eat the goat, and it's impossible to have the goat and the cabbage because the goat will eat the cabbage. So in this kind of position, we will have the man to oblige the wolf to be quiet and so on. So the representation of this world is made on the right part of the side. On this part, we have M, W, G, and C on the left or on the right part. And there are only quite less than 20 states, 20 different nodes to express this world. And in this world, we can find a path by graph exploration. So it's possible to make the different links between nodes just to explore the graph to obtain a correct path from the left part to the right part. And so we have several algorithms for that, for this kind of graph. These algorithms, for example, are algorithms for problem solving, like A star. A star is a famous, the very first and very famous algorithm in artificial intelligence. And we have some adaptation of it for problem with games with two players. So one player is making some specific decision and the other the antagonist decision. So because of that, we have different kind of expression of the graph, which is a pruning the graph for the different possible states. So it exists since a long time, some algorithm just to explore the graph if you are able to have good representation of the world with the states of the graph. So the graph is the main part to have the representation of the world in artificial intelligence. The second one is a heuristics, because if you have no algorithm, it's impossible to express exactly what you want that the computers do, because the computers are programmed, of course, and if you want to solve a problem, you need to have a kind of solution for the problem. And perhaps sometimes you find a solution which is not the best solution, but close to an optimum. And for that, you need to have a judgment from experts. And I just show you on this slide, but I don't want to read out the difference of the expertise from an expert and a novice. A novice has some specific organization of the representation of the world, and the expert has another one. So because of that, it's possible to investigate what is the expert representation of the world to obtain a good graph for this representation. Of course, an expert has some knowledge in his mind. Knowledge is a part of human. So knowledge is impossible to have knowledge without humans. The knowledge, I think that you can see my mouth. This part on the left, on the upper left part of the slide, is signification that knowledge is a conjunction with an actor and information. So you need to have some information, and you need to have somebody who read or writes the information. And the couple for that, the association between actor and information, leads to a knowledge. This is an example of what is a complex knowledge. Complex knowledge are systems. So knowledge, each knowledge in that indeed is not only an information, only a piece of information that you can write. It's a complex system. Complex system because it involves the information, of course, which is the express part of the knowledge, but there is also a context in which you can understand what is the knowledge, and there is a meaning. A meaning is what the people want to do or to express when they use some knowledge. For example, this is a watch. The watch, I think that most of you perhaps have a watch on the other hand, and the watch is composed with several information. But indeed, there are contexts to understand this information. The first context is a schedule time, for example, to have a schedule time to say, okay, the conference for today is at 6 o'clock. Oh, no, 5 o'clock. Oh, I don't know. Because there is a problem of time zone. Time zone is another context in which we used to use the time in Paris differently than in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, of course, because we have a long distance between two cities. And because of that, we have convention, we have consideration about what is time zone. By the same thing, we have clockwise. Clockwise is a convention, just to say that the clock is turning in specific sign, specific direction, and so on. So these contexts are convention with people, and for each of us, the time is a problem of meaning. The limit of moment, the limit of this conference, for example, is only 1 hour, and so on. So everything is the meaning of what I understand when I see the information of my watch. So knowledge is a very, very important thing for artificial intelligence. When we catch this knowledge and we can capture it, we can put knowledge in some graph, a specific graph, which is, the name of this graph is a semantic network. Semantic networks are composed with symbols and links between symbols. I can show you Ascopain, which is a knowledge about bread making. I can explain to you that how to make a bread in France. So making a bread in France, you can make some pétrissage, which is the first part to malax the fruit and so on. And so there is an explanation of what is le pétrissage with several parts, what it is, what are the different scheduled parts to obtain the pétrissage and so on, what is the guided part and so on. So we have an ontology, and this ontology, because it's completely well defined, could be rearranged in some web pages, like you can see the consistence of the past. I don't know all the word in English, but I think that you understand it. So this is a specific piece of knowledge which express something which we directly link with this semantic network. So it's possible to use the knowledge of experts and to express this knowledge in a specific representation, which is a semantic network. So, of course, there is another possibility to use artificial intelligence. It is based with neurons. So a neuron, a formal neuron, of course, is an automate with a specific piece of information, which is some entries, a threshold. So we have different parts of the calculation of this network just to obtain something at the end. So okay, something produce, and all of this for the calculation of the neuron indeed is a matrix calculation. So matrix calculation, a very formal mathematical one, and we use it just to represent neurons in a network. And you can imagine it just like if you see a network of flow or liquid, of course. So you have several diameters of pipes. You have several height for the tanks, and so you have a spread of the flow of the liquid in the network. And this is a representation. If you can see what is neural network, of course, it's a little bit more complex, of course. So neurons, if I can explain to you how it works. So a neural network, I hope that you can see my mouse. I don't see it. Yes, it is. So you have here an explanation about a specific digits. There are 7 digits. So digits are light or stopped. For example, this one is stopped, this one is light. And by the all, it means that this is the symbol 1. This is the symbol 3. This is the symbol 7. So you have a difference of information here, which is on trial, and here is output. And you have several things, which are the main things you want that the network learn, indeed. So if you have this entries, with this white matrix, you obtain exactly this output. And you can see that the incorrect entrance, you have the correct output. And if you use an entrance which is a no, indeed, because you just learn the 1, 3, and 7. If you use this entrance, which is quite an 8, the answer will be, for example, in this case, with this value, it will be perhaps it's a 3 or a 7. That's the first thing. That it's very indeed it's easy to make a program for a neural network. It's only calcul and a matrix calculation, but the calculation will be in the area of the entries that you put in the network. If you want to obtain more, of course, more entries, you want to obtain, for example, the same entries, but you want to have output to have 10 outputs. If you want to have this, it's a nonlinear problem, and you must use another layer of neurons here, which is the intermediate layer of neurons. And of course, you make not a complication, but you improve the matrix calculation. And in the reality, you put several layers just to obtain the nonlinear problem, to solve the nonlinear problem. So if you want to have a good and try to understand what is the learning in this kind of network, you can read this book. I think it's in French, but it will be certainly in English. So Yann Lequin is a very famous artificial intelligence scientist, and he produced his history about artificial intelligence. In this book, it's very interesting to understand that the first machine that he had programmed was a HLM. It's a joke in France, of course, but it's for hierarchical layer machine. And this machine is exactly the first one of this kind of networks. And this kind of networks take in consideration and try all the pixels of this cat, of course. And with this function of calculation, there will be, in this case, 3 possibilities with a dog, a cat or a bird. And of course, because of the examples which are learned by the machine, the most important score is with the cat, of course, because it is a cat. So this is an example of how the learning machine can produce some good results. But indeed, if you use it in your daily life, you can have some, as I said, it's a recognition of specific shape, specific things in a flow of information. I just take 3 screenshots for my personal mobile, so personal pictures. And you can see here, this is a party for at the end of the diplomation for students in our engineering school. So they are very happy, and they I don't know what is the name for this in English, so the top for students. And because of that, the recognition of it, it's very interesting that my phone directly linked to these 2 dates. The first one is 14 Juillet, so exactly the French national feast. And the second one is Noël, a very famous feast in France too. So because of that, I don't know, I don't explain something. It's not a feast for me, for example, but the recognition pattern try to find something which is close from this picture in this kind of set. So I don't know why exactly, but there is some meaning, there is no difference indeed between several pictures about fists. The second one is very interesting because it's a picture with students from our school, and there are a lot of them, and all of them are well organized by the system. So it's possible to link this picture with others because we have the face of people. The third one is my two daughters. They are twins. And because of that, it's sometimes the computer try to make a confusion between one to the other. So I don't make confusion with my daughters, but sometimes the computer make confusion. So you see, the recognition needs to have a learning program. So need to have very a big set of examples just to be sure to make relationships between examples and to have interpolation with a new picture which appear. So because of that, I can see that the time is passing. We have decision-making processes. For example, decision-making processes, I just want to explain to you two illustrations. The first one is a decision-making system very famous in aeronautic, is a OODA loop. So the decision-making is a process with four things. The first is to observe, so to catch some information. The second one, to orient, to understand the information, and then decide and act. Another entrance is interesting for the decision making. It comes from the system 1, system 2, so thinking fast or slow, famous from the Daniel Kahneman book, but in the 80s it was produced. And we work in our engineering school in this kind of system, which is IPSEL. So for information processing system with an emerging logic. So the emerging logic comes from this kind of loop, with a fast or slow computation of this thing. So it's possible to entrance in more improved capacities for calculation. And so the decision-making process is a very interesting part of artificial intelligence. Another part is to understand there are two different things, as I presented. So one comes from the neuron network and the other from the semantic network. So if you want to make a decision-making system, you can base the system on neural network recognition of a pattern, or you can make your system from knowledge coming from experts based on ontology. Because of that, you have two kinds of things. The first one for artificial intelligence is a network of automata, so network of neural network, formal neural network. The second one is a graph of states, as I presented before. You have several qualifications for that. I can't read it because of the time, but you can coming back after if you want to have the difference. So there are two different ways to understand what could be the artificial intelligence in computers. The first one is the analogy with the human brain. So because of small piece of neurons and connection of neurons, you can generate intelligent things. The second one is analogy with a human language. So because you have several decomposition of the problem in different states, because you express it, it's possible to have something which is intelligent. Okay, continue the trip. Another word very important in artificial intelligence is a virtuality, because indeed, the world that is computed by artificial intelligence is not the real world, of course. It's another reality, not alternative reality, but another reality. The reality sometimes is virtual, completely virtual. If you have a new world, you have a world composed by completely new things. But it's possible sometimes to have a mix with virtuality and reality. So it's augmented reality. You enhance the real world with something which appeared on this. For example, with light, with camera, it's possible to enhance the world, to enhance your area in which you are. With glasses, for example, it's possible to enhance it. So it's difficult for people to understand that if you have an enhanced world, it's not the real world. The real world plus something, but something is not the reality. Something is computed. And because of that, you can have some biases and so on. So in the virtual world, we used to say that data are perceived as objective, but it's really wrong, because data all the time oriented the calculation. Data, we think that it's cumulative, but it's not really. Sometimes some new data are the antagonist part of older data. So it's difficult to manage which is wrong and which is true. And there is a phenomena, which is apophenia. If you have too much data, you will be influenced to identify patterns where there is no patterns, no reason to see them. It's exactly like you see shapes from something in the clouds. You see, there is nothing in the clouds, just clouds. But indeed, because you want to find something, you can find something. So the virtuality, remember that the virtuality is another world. If you want to find something in the virtual world, of course, you can find it. So entrance now in more precise computation. So for example, I want to show you how I can code this curve. This curve is separate with small squares. And the first step is to make an approximation of the signal. So you can see here with the blue curve is not exactly on a specific square or not. Some squares have just a part of the blue signal. But if I want to make codage for that, I need to have exact square, which is with a 0 or with a 1. The second time, you need to define a protocol. To define a protocol, just say, I just come in here. And because of that, I can follow the curve with some part on the left, on the right, and so on. So there are the translation of the curve into numbers. And the last one is a translation in binary digits. But we completely lose which is the really meaning of that. So this curve is a part of the French curve, the French shape. And if you just see it, you completely lose this main information. For you, you are human and you can understand it because you know where is it. The computer doesn't, of course. Computers need to have data, of course, and to put data in files. So in files, you have some information, which has some boxes and a specific agglomeration, so specific pattern of boxes, one by one, and so on. I just show you the difference to code something. For example, in this middle, there are 6 sheep. If you want to code how many sheep is there, you can code it in a number between 0 and 255. In this case, if you want to answer how many sheep is there in the middle, you just translate this number in, he said there are 6, so 4 plus 2, okay. But if you want to code more information, you can code it with a, with a location of the different sheep. So you can locate it and you can code it with a 1 or 0. 1 was the 1 and 0 was the no sheep. This is another system of code. And if you want to know how many sheep there, you just count the 1 in these sequences. But you can make a thing more complex. If you want to notice that sheep are with several sizes. And if you want to code each size of the sheep, you have here each of it. So this is the size of the first one. This is no one. This is no one. This is third of the second one, and so on. So you can have the size. So if you want to know how many are there, it's very difficult to understand it. So you can make some codage of information, but you need to code this information in the way that you want to produce some result after. And all the files are a necessity to code the information, a necessity to obtain some physical parts of data. So some words about quantum computing. So I take this picture from IBM Quantum Computing. So this is a quantum computer. So because of that, there is on 0 degrees, so minus 270, 73 or 71 degrees. So it's a very, very cold one. And because of that, you have some particles which are in the capacity to code something. So the particles code some information. And the new thing to understand, for me, I'm a computer scientist, is very interesting to see that, because this is a case to compute to compute in quantum. So you have five particles, and each particle take a spin in different parts, and you code it to obtain a program. So this is a capacity to code it, of course. This is a symbolic representation of it, but indeed, there is no code for the information. You have on the same place the code for information and the data, and the code for the program. So program and data are completely in the same part of the codification. So it's a very interesting thing. Because of that, we speak about IBM. So let me introduce Mr. Watson. Of course, if you think about Watson, a lot of part of you certainly think about Sherlock Holmes and Watson. It's wrong, because the name of Watson is not from the Dr. Watson, because the most intelligent man is Sherlock Holmes. It's not Watson. This name comes from Thomas Watson, which is the founder of IBM in the beginning of the 20th century. And IBM think about for artificial intelligence with cloud, content, compute, and conversation. So cloud is a necessity to obtain the data. Content is the possibility to have an enhancement of the data. Compute, of course, is a Watson activity with a cognitive API, some parts to translate speech in text, to translate unscraping, and so on. You have different parts to understand, to compute with artificial intelligence program. And the last one for me is the more important, is the conversation. The conversation with the debater, the project debater for IBM, which is developed in Israel, and so with the center of Haifa. And this is certainly the future for computers. The future for computers is to be able to have a conversation with humans. But indeed, it's very, very difficult to have a conversation. Here you have two screenshots for websites. One is for IBM, one is against IBM. This one said, perhaps it's very, it's not so easy to have a computer who care people and so on. But indeed, I think that the main part of this IBM program is not in health or in anywhere. They said about that, but I think that the most important thing is about the conversation. How the problem is how people can have a conversation with computers. The problem is because each of us have some biases. So when I speak, when you listen to me, of course, each of us have some biases. Biases is very important, very easy to understand if you think about optical illusion. Of course, optical illusion are biases to have a wrong perception of the reality. But we have also cognitive styles of cognitive biases. Cognitive styles are some disposition for you or for me to have a captation of the reality. I have no time to explain exactly, but remember that there are several cognitive styles in you and in me brain. My brain. And all of this lead to cognitive biases. If you think fast, or if you think partial, or if you think near your representation, you obtain some biases. Biases is because you have interpretation, you have an observation, but you have an orientation which is not the true one. It is due to your ability of thinking, to your manner of you use your brain. For example, I just have 3 examples. This one is the difference between the logic of the engineer from the telecom domain, and this is the logic from the engineer in computer science. You can see in this, this is a cache machine, of course. The 0 is here just after the 9, because it's because of the logic for telecom. In telecom, you have no 0. If you want to produce a 0, indeed, you need to have the 10. Because you have the 1, the 2, the 3, which are some impulsion. And if you want to have the 0, you use the 10. Of course, the 0 is after the 9. In computers, the 0 is a number, so it's before the 1. And in this case, you have 4, 5, 6 in the middle, here 2. But in the first case, you have 7, 8, 9 at the bottom, and this here at the top. So they are just logic from engineers, and you use it because you are obliged to use these tools. Here are some two examples of biases for computer, for data. Here is a famous one. It's a recognition for predicted. You want to have a system which can predict if it is a wolf or a husky. And of course, you have some good prediction, it's true, and some bad prediction here. And this is explained in this article. The bad prediction was certainly done by the snow on the back of the animal more than the real recognition of the animal. So indeed, this recognition just express a result with the backside of the animal and not because of the animal. For me, for example, it's impossible to make a differentiation between the husky or the wolf. Here is a more cute prediction. It's a prediction if you have a chihuahua or a muffin. So for example, this one is a muffin and the center one is a chihuahua. So it's very easy for us to make the difference, but indeed it's strange for us to make the difference. And here the machine sometimes is wrong and sometimes is good. So there are some biases. The biases for data comes from the learning package of examples. And because of that, we have some difference between human, and very few words about that. We have some in English. You have only a word which is user, and in French we have two translations for the user. One is usager, somebody who uses something, and the other one is utilisateur, somebody who uses something. So if I translate it in English, there is exactly the same word. Perhaps you can make a difference in English with the end user or the drive user, the car user, the transport session user, and so on. You can understand with an addition of one word, if the user is in position of to have low interest in how to do and only the result is important for him, or if the user is in great curiosity of the way to do something, the ability to explore, and so very important to obtain to understand how it works. And this is a difference in this language. Of course, it's very complicated because when you begin your use of something, if you try to learn how to use some tool, you will be an utilisateur. But if you improve your utilization, you will be an expert, and an expert has low interest of how to do because it's an automatic things to do it. Okay, so if you observe the difference between human, if you observe the biases, if you observe the cognitive orientation of human, you can have several differences between kind of humans. And so, is there any difference between a young or older person, like me, for example? You see, we speak about Y generation, Z generation, up generation, and so on. So young people are supposed to provide with an innate, spontaneous, and irrepressible spirit for learning and knowing. Indeed, I don't think so. Internet for these people will be built as a free and direct tool offering instant access of this knowledge. Somebody said that, but indeed, of course, we have orientation about digital technology, of course. Of course, young people certainly have more skills and dexterity to use mobile phone and to use computers, of course. But indeed, the most different for me between young people and me, for example, is in the difference, for example, the market for labor, the labor market to find a job. It's not the same place today to find a job than it was in my situation when I was young. So because of that, my representation of the world is different from the younger people, or representation of younger people. And Dominique Volton has a specific expression for that. He said, if young people are very, very acute, very oriented to digital activities, they will be, of course, ravis, like ravis de la crèche in France, Santon de Provence, ravis de la crèche numérique. So they will be completely out of the interest of it. So the evolution since perhaps 30 years, but we can have other datation. In my young part of my life, we were interested in career and salary. And today, young engineers are just interested in mission to have an engagement. So because of that, the perception of the world is very, very different. And of course, the situation for artificial intelligence will be different for them and for me. You have some explanation of the article in this review. So the jobs is certainly the most consequence for our daily life activities. Nobody speaks about that, but indeed, in a few years, how will be the formation, how will be done the learning for the dermatologists, for example, or new radiologists? They will be trained with the computers, so they don't understand what they do. They just be trained to push the button of computers. So it's very dangerous. It will be the same for the lawyers, for example. It's more easy today to have computers just to deal with a very, very lot of things for lawyer activities. But it's more easy with a computer. But indeed, you need to understand the feelings, understand what is exactly the job. So in the future, we will develop some recommendations, some algorithms and so on, but we must be care of the semantics, of the meaning of the activity. This is a letter for a robotician, and this is an article for roboticians, and they produce here a letter for Norman Wiener, who was the man who developed the first automated system. And this letter, he wrote this letter to the president of General Motors and said, please, in the automotive industry, don't use automation because it will be the end of the work for people. And you know the end of the story. So we need to have ethics approach for artificial intelligence. I think that it's impossible to use artificial intelligence without a reflection, without a consideration of what we are doing in the world. And ethics is the third pillar for French strategy for artificial intelligence. I know that you will have some other presentation, other lectures, and one about French strategy. So be careful about what is the ethics for the French strategy. So in my experience, I use the vision of the ethics, which is used by the Conseil d'État in France. The Conseil d'État works on the revision for bioethics laws. And because of that, they use three very important points to understand what is ethics. The first one is the dignity. So it's the most important thing. If you do something, you just take care that the person, that all the people in front of you continue to be treated in dignity. So it is a respect for the other in front of you. So it's very important. So don't use an artificial intelligence system if it's for to defeat somebody. Of course, it's a wish, but it's the most important thing. The second one is the solidarity, and the third one is the individual freedom. So don't use something because you are free to use it. Before, think about the solidarity. If you use it, are you alone to use it, or is it possible for the other to use it again? And if you use it, is it against somebody or not against somebody? So these three parts of the reflection, for me, is a guideline to understand what is ethics in artificial intelligence. Yes, we have quite finished. The XIA is the problem of explanation, because if you want to respect people in front of you, you need to have explanation of the result. Current results coming from neural network, of course, coming only for recognition of a pattern without explanation. Sometimes there is a probability of the separation of different candidates, but mainly it's only the result without any interpretation. A way for this explanation is coming from the result and try to find some features which are the more important things for the recognition. And because of that, you can use ontologies which explain it and have an explanation of that. One good topic, perhaps one very important in the future, will be the GAN. The GAN is generative adversarial nets. It's a combination of two neural networks. One is producing something, and the other is try to deal with the opportunity. Is it good or not? For example, all these faces are produced with computers only. So they are fake faces. On the right, you can have the process to use it. The people here on the first line are real people. People here are real people. And all the other are a combination with the real people and in the manner of the new one. For example, this is a child, and all of them are with a more childy aspects. And all of these are blonde aspects, and this one, okay. So you have different capacity to produce some new faces. So only people on the border exist, all the other doesn't exist. This is a portrait of, this is quite a picture, a painting, which doesn't exist. It's this painting was produced with a computer and was sold in Sotheby's. So it's a new way to produce some art. So the explanation need to have something to have a marker of the resonance, marker of it, and to produce something which is new one. All of this story of artificial intelligence come from this man. So this man wrote in more than 50 years ago, 70 or 80 years ago. He said, I believe that at the end of the century, so the end of the century was past, no? The use of the word and the education of people, we have altered so much. So I don't understand exactly what he means with altered. But he said that we can speak today of machine thinking without being contradicted. And I think that is right. So we have no thinking machine today, but people think that they are thinking machine. So perhaps that's enough. The question is exactly the question of the semantic. So Turing present a test to test if the result comes from a human or a computer. And of course, there is a philosophical extension of that, but I can pass it because of the time, if we want to discuss. And the last one is the problem of the zeta. Zeta is the actual order of magnitude of the entire World Wide Web. So actually, the World Wide Web, so the data accessible for a computer is quite 1,000,000,000,000 terabytes. So it's 1 zettabyte. Indeed, it's 35. If you remember that a terabyte is something you need to have if you have a closed circuit television to have an observation camera. If you have only gigabyte, you can have a movie. Megabyte for pictures, kilobyte for text. And so for each, there are 1,000 size difference from one to other. So indeed, 1 zettabyte, it's impossible to understand for somebody. So we are in a world in which we have a lot of data. We have today some artificial intelligence algorithm which can try to find some shape in this lake of data. And because of that, computers could find for us some recommendation for the gesture, recommendation for our behavior in the future. So try to remember that semantics today is only the capacity for human, not for computers. So all that the computer proposes to you today is without meaning, is only a result of a calculation. Okay, thank you very much. Martial?
Thank you very much, Benoit. My camera is coming. I don't know where, but okay. I don't know if you can see me, but at least you can hear me.
I can see you.
We do have some questions. And the first one is from Barbara Soking. And she asked if you could talk about artificial intelligence, biases, and political polarization. Do you want me to translate?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yes, I speak very quickly about biases. Biases is certainly the most important and difficult point to understand, because we have you, me, and everybody as a brain to understand. So my mind is produced by my brain, okay? So my consideration of the world is a result of my brain activity. But because of this brain activity, I have some biases. So, for example, if I want to have a choice, I choose some for election, for democracy, or to buy something. This is a choice. This choice is produced by decision making. And indeed, in the future or today, it's possible to make some influence in the decision making of anybody. If you don't notice what is a bias is your consideration to decide. And if you don't take care about that, somebody can use a computer and to use your biases to produce some choice, to predictive choice for you. It is, the name of that is a nudge. And the combination with nudge and like big part of data and artificial intelligence will be in the future very delicate thing. And because of that, I said that we must have ethical consideration, because if you make a combination with nudges and artificial intelligence, I think that dignity is out of consideration.
We have another question from the same person actually, who is asking, how can we tell whether a photo is a fake computer made?
It's possible today, yes. It's possible because I present to you some fake faces, but indeed these fake faces are produced, it's not a result from a camera and a real picture. Because of that, it's a production of specific pixels. So pixels are assembled in this. And because of that, it's possible to make a difference between some cluster of pixels in the reality or produced by the computer. So today, it's possible to make a difference between fake faces and real faces, but you need to have the computer for that. Because if you just see the faces, it's impossible to make a difference.
We have another question from, I'm sorry if I'm saying it the bad way, Leon Horowitz. Is there a foolproof way for Facebook, for an example, to better control hate speech?
I'm not sure to understand, sorry.
Est-ce qu'il y a un moyen pour Facebook de mieux contrôler les discours haineux via l'intelligence artificielle?
I don't know. I have an advice, but I don't know because I don't work with Facebook. Certainly, it's possible to make something. Is this thing the good result or not? I'm not sure. But for example, Facebook is in possession of a very, very large part of data. Because of that, perhaps it's possible to imagine in which kind of Facebook account will appear some bad words. So they can have some sentinel just to prepare the computer for that. But I don't know what will be the process for them. But I have some possibilities. I can understand. I have a representation of the world which is compatible with some possibilities to find it. So I hope that they use this kind of thing to make a distinction with the heinous purpose. Okay.
I have another question. Neuronal networks clearly have many capabilities, but do they offer something fundamentally different than what we could be achieved by perhaps very large computer programs written in a more traditional manner?
Yes, it's completely different indeed. It's the most important thing to understand for neural network is a completely different organization of the process of the representation of the world and so on than the ontology or the semantic network. Semantic network is more easy to understand because it's quite the same thing we use. It's not exactly the same because, of course, it's a modelization of the world. But for us, for human, we try to imagine that in our brain, it's possible to make a field conductor of the thinking. And because of that, it's possible to reproduce the same thing or heuristics in semantic network. So it's more easy to understand what appears in a semantic network. For a neural network, it's completely different. As I show you for the Chihuahua and the Muffin, for example, or the Husky and the Wolf, the computer is completely free to find differentiation between one example of picture and one other example of picture. So this is like in a very, very big area of mathematical exploration. So in this perhaps 1 billion dimension more than 1 billion dimension in mathematical world. The different examples are have different distance with them. And the computer tries to find something which is in the middle, just to say, on this point, I'm close from this example, and on the other point, I'm close from the other example. But indeed, it's only capacity of calculation. There is no feature based on semantic possibilities, semantic appreciation of the world. So there is completely different. And because of that, it's possible to produce some computers results which are very surprising for us.
We have another question. All the AI neuron is really similar to the human brain one. Is the way it processes data?
Neural networks are completely different from neuron in cells. So on one hand, you have some automats from computers. So something which is exactly the result is completely predicted, because once there is something, it's produced exactly that. And so you have a combination, a complex combination of urge of neurons, of course, but it's possible to understand mathematically what happened. On the other hand, you have cells, biological cells. And indeed, we don't know what is a neuron. We suppose to understand what is a neuron because we have some experiments, we have some biological searchers, which a lot of things about that, but we are not sure, we are not the map of how to build the brain. So because of that, it's impossible to predict exactly what is a neuron. So that, for me, it's completely different.
Do you think that in the future, AI will replace human decision? A question from David Harari.
I hope no. I hope it will not be that, because of semantic. Today, it's impossible to have semantic inside the computer. I presented very briefly, but you can coming back in the slide. The problem is the problem of complexity. We suppose that the complexity of the semantics is higher than the possibility of the computer today. So for human brain, it's a question of survive. We understand the world because it's a question of surviving in our world. So we use something, we don't know exactly what, and we use this thing. If you want to reproduce with a mathematical consideration this thing, it's too large for complexity. So because of that, the complexity of semantics is today only for humans and not for computers. And because of that, the decision-making process will be, sometimes it will be made by the machine. For example, if you have a very short time to make a decision, for example, in cybersecurity, you have some attacks which appear very quickly. So it's impossible for a human to detect and to activate something. Because of that, the decision will be made with computers automatically. But if you have time to understand or to think about or to elaborate a decision, I think in this case, certainly that the human will be the leader. But in this case, the human could be improved, the decision of the human could be improved by artificial intelligence assistance. Like a surgeon daughter. So,
We have another question on the concept of apophenia. Could you teach or at least limited a program so that is not making like mistaken when it try to associate stuff?
It's the same problem of semantics, because we are semantic people, we are semantic animals. I don't know what's the correct word, but indeed we can see semantics anywhere, and because of that we are apophenia potential. We can have apophenia behavior, but indeed computers, it's impossible. If you want to compute it, of course you can make a program with apophenia things in parts. So, but indeed, naturally, a program will not engage this kind of thing. For example, I've not detailed it, but we are in sanitary consideration very difficult in the world today, and we assume, because this is a bias, we want that it will have some detection of who has the COVID disease, and who has not this disease. We want to have something which is a test for which the true or the false result of the test will be the reality. But indeed, it's impossible. And the brain, the human mind, deal with difficulties, the problem of false positive and false negative. So if you make a test, perhaps you have the disease, but the result is wrong. So you think you have not, but you are ill, okay? And the opposite is possible too. And this kind of difference between the result of the test and the reality, for us, it's very difficult to understand it. But for a computer, there is no problem because there is no reality. There is only modeled situation. So if you, for a computer, if the test is positive, you are positive. That's all.
What is the worst scenario of misusing the artificial intelligence?
The worst scenario. I don't think about strong artificial intelligence. So I don't think that we will have some. I'm like in Luc Julia way of things. Luc Julia said artificial intelligence doesn't exist. The only thing is augmented intelligence, and I agree with him because augmented intelligence is possible. It's possible with artificial intelligence processes to enhance my own intelligence. So I can augment my intelligence, of course. But indeed, it's impossible today to have a self-content program of artificial intelligence which can elaborate some concept and so. Everybody who said to you that there is a computer who makes something and so on, mainly it's fake because the consideration to obtain semantics activity from computers is out of consideration today, out of possibilities. But perhaps with this kind of question, you will have some more detailed answers with the next lecture from Bertrand Braunschweig, perhaps, because the next topic will be about that. Certainly because it's more interesting things. We think about artificial intelligence and we want to deal with this kind of question, of course. Me too.
We have a question. I'm not sure you'll be able to answer, but let's try. Is neuronal network behind the Iron Dome in Israel defense? But I'm not sure you know what is Iron Dome.
Yes, I know that. I have read something about that. I'm not sure, but because it's dome, it's something, it's a shield, some protection. So you need to explain to the opposant that there is artificial intelligence in it, because they will respect you more than if you have not, I think.
In medicine, there is a huge amount of information that is difficult to integrate for the decision-making process. Could you share with us if there is any AA tools that assist physicians?
Yes, there are a lot of tools with artificial intelligence for physicians, but it depends activities of physician. As I said, for example, in dermatology, so if you want to observe a part of the skin, if you want to observe is it a melanoma or not, the result of a computer is better than the result of human, because the difference of pixels, the difference of colors is more easy to observe with a very high-level pictures, with a lot of pixels, with a lot of possibilities to have a grossissement, a big one. But for the human eye, it's very difficult. Or you need to have time with a loop. I have not all of the vocabulary in English for that. Lens for emphasize the skin. So because of that, sometimes in specific activities, the computers are better than human. But for the whole job of a dermatologist, I think that there is no problem for him. A dermatologist has a lot of things to do. But to recognize a melanoma on the skin, he must use a computer with artificial intelligence recognition, because it will be more easy for him and more sure for the patient. So in some activities, computers and robots are in a very good way to help people, to help surgeon or physician.
We have a lot of questions still. There is a famous problem in area of autonomous car. In case of car crash, AI will have to choose what to hit, a tree or a human or the walkway. What is your perspective on the ethical choices made by AI?
It's a difficult. I had a slide on this part, but I put it out because of time. Indeed, there is the tramway dilemma. So there is a spirit experience. So you think about what you will do in this case of situation. But indeed, it's impossible to make a program with it. So the ethic part, the ethic consideration is only for human. It's impossible to have an ethic program. You can have an ethic way to program a computer, but an ethic program has no sense. That the program, the result of the decision of a program is only a computation. There is no ethical consideration. If there is ethical consideration, that means that there is some advanced things coded in the computer with semantics possibilities and so on to understand it. But for computers today, it's impossible. So for the car, for example, the car, I think that the most important rule for the car is to stay on the street. Another very important thing is if there is something in front of the car, stop the car. And the combination of these rules will produce sometimes some accident, sometimes no. And there is no choice to say, I prefer this kind of accident than the other, because there is no choice on it. And think about your own possibilities. Do you think that in ethical consideration, you prefer to make this decision than the other? Perhaps. But if you are in a driver situation, if you are the driver, you have no time to think about that. So ethical consideration is possible when you are in your chair, in your office, thinking about the situation with not the reality, immediate reality for you.
We have another question. Can you refer to spike neurons under the context of AI? And I checked the translation if you need. Spike neurons is réseau de neurones à impulsion.
Yes, but I don't know sufficient things about this domain to explain to you something. It's out of my capacities.
We have another question. Can a machine program a machine?
Yes, of course. Of course, because the program is something which is very formal, so some formal things. So since a long time, there are some program to make some programs since a long time. I think that the beginning of computer science tried to do it, but today it's efficient, of course.
And we have a question about the use of English in the field of AI. Do you think that the use of AI will make English more present and that French is dead in the field of AI?
Sorry?
We have a question about the using of French in the field of AI. And so a question could be like, would AI impose more English like in the scientific field and even in the population?
It's a pity to speak in English, you can see, because I am French. A lot of people around the screen are French. Some other are certainly doesn't speak French. So we use English because it's the common language. But indeed, the best way is to have translation. To prepare these slides, I use automatic translation for all. Not for all slides, but most part of slides. I control it after, of course. But indeed, in the future, the translation will be certainly more and more efficacious and more easy to use. And because of that, certainly that we use some translators in the future more than today. But it's okay for daily life situation. It's okay for very simple things. But if we think about, for example, philosophia, it will be impossible. Remember that the great authors of Philosophia are translated by people, and sometimes 10 or 20 years after, a new translation comes. So that means that the translation, the first one, wasn't so good. So the translation for very high-level concepts, just to think about, will be impossible in translation, automatic translation. But for most part, it will be okay. And because it will be okay, I will continue to speak and to think in French, because my conversation part for other people will be translated, and I can check the translation, and we can, because of the conversation, be sure that the translation is okay. So French is not dead.
And one last question that will be my question, and I don't know if you can answer it in 2 minutes, but could you explain the difference between deep learning and machine learning?
Yes, machine learning is more generic things. So you can, for example, if you code an ontology in the machine, it's kind of machine learning. The deep learning is a specific part of machine learning, which is devoted to the neural network and devoted to the neural network with several layers, certainly 13 today, or 13 or 20 layers. So it's a specific machine learning.
Great, thank you. Est-ce que vous pourriez passer à la slide suivante que je conclue, s'il vous plaît? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Benoit, for being here with us tonight. Thank you very much for everybody for following this first online lecture on AA. And as you said during your speech, our next event will be next week on July 9th. The speaker will be Bertrand Braunschweig, who was actually with us tonight. And he will speak more about what we can do with AI and what it still comes under science fiction. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you to our partners. And for more information, you can check our website, aiandethics.com. You can subscribe there, and we'll keep you updated and send you the link for the next conference. And on this website, you will also find the replay and the video of this conference. So go check this website and see you on July 9th. Thank you very much, and thank you, Benoit.
Thank you.